Jake here for American Muscle, and today I'm taking a look at the K&N Series 69 Typhoon Cold Air Intake fitting 2016 and newer V6 Camaros. If you're looking for an easy way to improve the drivability and response of your V6 Camaro for a good price, you've got to take a look at this intake from K&N. This was specifically designed to increase airflow and reduce intake temperatures versus your stock intake setup, which is going to make for a noticeable difference in the way your car drives and responds. This is a no tune required intake that's going to give you more sound and a little more power for a noticeable change in the driving experience. K&N has long been the name in cold air intakes, and with good reason. Their intakes and filters are high quality, long-lasting pieces that provide noticeable improvements in overall drivability. And this Series 69 Typhoon system is absolutely no exception. But let's start with that filter. Now this is a washable, reusable, high-flow air filter that uses a cotton gauze media and an oiled design to help capture dirt and particulates. Now since this is notably larger than your stock filter, you've got a lot more surface area here. It's inherently going to let more air through. And these deep pleats in the filter help with both airflow and with trapping unwanted dirt and debris. Now since this is an oil design, you've got the added benefit of having an additional layer of protection against dirt and particulates. The oil on the surface is nice and sticky and slick. You can feel it when you pick it up, so it can help filter out even some of the most small particulates that might otherwise slip through a dry filter. The best part about an oil filter though is that it's reusable. So you can just wash this out, re-oil it, pop it right back in. You don't need to replace it, so you can just clean it and be on your way. Now oil filters like this have a pretty long lifespan, especially if they're properly cared for. So it will cut down on replacement costs, especially if you're planning on keeping your Camaro a long time. Now K&N says that you can go up to 100,000 miles without cleaning this filter in ideal conditions. However, for most of us, we're not going to encounter ideal conditions, so I recommend cleaning this out every year or so just to make sure everything is performing at its best. I like to do it once every other season, so usually right before winter and usually right before summer. That way you know that everything is performing at its best. It's a pretty quick and easy process too. Just wash it out, make sure it's nice and clean, spray it with some oil, let it sit for a few minutes, and you're ready to go. Now with this kit, you also get a heat shield that's going to help protect that filter from engine bay heat and keep those intake temperatures down. Now this is not a closed box system. However, the heat shield is going to do a good job of keeping that engine bay heat away from the filter itself, making for much more of a true cold air intake than something that does without a heat shield entirely. Now this does have some weather stripping that is included and goes around the outer edges of this. So though it's not totally enclosed, it is going to be pretty well sealed off. So this is designed to pull in cool air through the fresh air vent in the grill. And since you've got some space around this once it's mounted under the hood, it's going to help make sure that that filter is bathed in cool air, so to speak. Now all of that air that we've been talking about feeds through this adapter into a nice aluminum intake tube. And this is probably my favorite part of the entire setup. And that's because this is going to provide you with better airflow than stock because it's nice and smooth. But mostly, I love it because aluminum intake tubes make a great noise. Now you get some serious intake honk when you're on the throttle here. You're gonna get a lot of that induction noise. It's very growly, it sounds great. However, it's gonna stay quiet when you're just cruising around town, so really it's kind of the best of both worlds here. Another big positive is that this is a no tune required intake, so you don't need to invest in a custom tune or a flash module to get this setup to work on your Camaro. You can just bolt this guy right on and you're off to the races. However, I say that with the caveat, like with any other intake, you shouldn't expect huge power gains. You're gonna feel more of a difference in the way your car responds since you're gonna get more air flowing through and into the engine. It's gonna be a little bit more responsive than what you would have had stock. However, don't expect huge numbers. Big power gains are just not gonna be the end result here. Those aren't really the goal. However, it will be an appreciable difference. And of course, even though a tune is not required, if you wanna make the most out of your setup, you can always invest in such a tune and make sure you maximize the gains that you can get from this. As far as construction goes, the filter we were talking about earlier is that cotton gauze media. It's got 4 layers to it, and again, it's that oil design. So this is going to do an excellent job of filtering out any dirt and debris that you might encounter. The intake tube, of course, is aluminum, and it's mandrel bent as well, making for nice, smooth airflow. And the finish looks pretty cool too. It's gonna look pretty slick once you've got it mounted up in your engine bay. The heat shield is also made from the same type of aluminum as your intake tube. This one is just finished off in a nice wrinkle black powder coat. That and the included weather stripping here again is gonna help isolate that filter, keep the engine bay heat out for an efficient and effective setup, and everything you've got here should last you quite some time too. Pricing comes in at about $450, which is about the middle of the category when it comes to intakes for these cars. Now you are paying a premium for the materials and the engineering, but it's going to be an effective and cool looking setup for your car, and about the only sacrifice you're going to need to make is some time to get it installed. Speaking of which, installation is going to get a 1 out of 3 on our difficulty meter, and it should only take you about 1 hour to complete this job. This is a totally bolt-in system. You can accomplish this job at home in your garage or driveway without much fuss. You don't need to make any modifications or add any special tools at the ready. Everything you need is included in the kit, even all the little fittings and the clamps that you need as well. And now to show you that process, let's go ahead and hand it over to one of our AM customers.
All right, so a quick explanation of the tools that we used. We're using the 10mm wrench here with the socket. That's used to tighten all the supplied hex bolts. The 4mm Allen key was to tighten the filter adapter into the filter housing. We have the T30 Torx here to remove the engine cover. The T20 Torx was to tighten, remove actually the MAF sensor from the factory housing, and we tightened it in with the supplied 3mm bolts. We had a pair of scissors here we used just to trim that edge trim. And we used a 18, 14, and 12mm wrench here just to tighten some of those random plastic fittings that it had. And of course our drivers here with an extension to make it easier. And lastly, I used a flat blade screwdriver for the hose clamps, or you could have used the appropriate socket. In this video, I'll be installing a K&N Series 69 Typhoon Cold Air Intake on this 2023 3.6 liter V6 Camaro. Alright, so step one, we're going to disconnect the negative battery terminal. And to do that, we need to come back here to the trunk, open that up. If you come on the passenger side here, there's a panel that you're going to need to remove. That just pulls right off real easy. And then we expose our battery here. The negative terminal is the one right here, and we're going to use a 10mm socket and ratchet and remove that. So we'll put that on here. Get it loose. Once it's loose, just give it a little, get a little bit looser than that. Comes right off. We're done. Alright, so for step two, we're going to remove the bolt that secures your decorative engine cover, which is located here. And then we're going to need to remove the oil cap here. Take this off, then we'll reinstall the oil cap. To remove the bolt, we're going to use our T30 with the extension and our ratchet. We're just going to get in here, remove this bolt. Comes right out. Our oil cap off. Then our engine cover just comes right off. Make sure you reinstall your oil cap back on. Done. Alright, for step three, we're going to release the locking tab and then disconnect the EVAP vent line quick disconnect fitting from the factory intake tube. And that's located right here, and to release this, you're just going to go ahead and press in on it here like this, and then it just pulls right off. And there you go. Step four is to release the sound tube quick disconnect fitting and disconnect the sound tube from the factory intake tube. Now that would be located right here underneath this, but my vehicle does not have that, so we're going to go on to step five, which is to loosen the 3 hose clamps that secure the intake tube and the crankcase vent tube, then remove the tube from the vehicle. And those 3 screws are here, here, and here. We're going to use a flat blade screwdriver to do that. So I'm just going to unscrew these until they're loose. Just give it a little wiggle here and pull that one off. Like that. And then remove it from the vehicle. So step 6 is to release the 3 flexible clamps that secure the sound tube and disconnect the sound drum from the rear sound tube, then remove the sound tube assembly. That would be located over here. However, it's not present on this vehicle, so we're going to go ahead and skip it. Step 7 is to install the provided plug on the quick disconnect fitting here like this. And then you would move on to step 8 and install this plug assembly onto the sound tube and secure it with a tie wrap. If that was present on your vehicle, you'd be putting this on the sound tube and then securing the sound tube with a tie wrap. Alright, step 9 is to disconnect the mass airflow sensor electrical connection, and that's right here. And to do that, you need to pull out on this red tab here in the back. Once you pull that out, you just push down a little bit here and it pops right off. Step 10, we're going to lift up and remove the factory air filter housing assembly. To do that, just give it a little shake, it comes loose, and then you got this the airflow sensor plug here that you just pull out of the hole there, and it comes out. Step 11, we're going to remove the factory crankcase vent coupler from the crankcase vent tube here, and to do that, we're going to use twisting, pulling motions. You can slip it off. You definitely don't need to cut this this factory clamp here. So let's give it a little twist and pull. Let's work it a bit, and there, it comes off. All right, step 12, we're going to install the filter adapter into the heat shield and secure it with the provided hardware. And that's going to be your M6 bolt here with a locking washer and then a flat washer. And to do that, you just place it in here and line these holes up. Get each one of them started here. And we're going to tighten that down with our 4mm Allen key. All right, step 13, we're going to install the provided edge trim onto the heat shield as shown. And what we're going to start is we're going to start with the brackets and we're going to go from here around this whole entire edge back to here, and some trimming may be required. So what you do is you just push it down on here and then follow it around. Make sure it's all the way seated when you do it. It's a little difficult at these sharp edges here. But I'm gonna do it all as one piece. Alright, so this is about 1.5 inches that we're going to have to cut off here. But we make sure we're going to get it all the way pressed down all around before we do that trimming. Especially at these corner parts, because that's probably where it's going to bind up the most. That's good there. Alright, to trim that, I'm just going to use a pair of scissors I have here. Cut that right off. And press it down. Step 14, we're going to install the 2 provided mounting posts onto the heat shield using the provided hardware. So we got these mounting posts here. Provided hardware is going to be the hex head bolt, lock washer, flat washer, and those are going to go one of them here and one of them here, and they're going to face towards the camera, so the bolt's going to come in from the rear like this, and just thread that on like that, and then we're going to use a 10mm socket and ratchet to tighten it down. Oops. Same with the bottom one. And to ensure we got these all the way tight, we're going to come in here with the 12mm, and there's flat spots on this so you can hold it. And then take our 10mm socket and get them tight. We don't want these coming loose. Alright, there we go. Step 15, we're going to install the remaining mounting post onto the long leg of the provided bracket using the hardware, and we're going to then install that on the heat shield. And to do that, we're going to use our hex head bolt here, lock washer, flat washer on the long leg here like this. Make sure that it's pointed down with that angle like that. Install this mounting post on there. And we'll come in here with our 12mm wrench and 10mm socket and get this nice and tight. Now, when you install this on here, the mounting post points down. And to install this, we're going to use the provided hardware, which is another hex head bolt, but this time just a flat washer goes through and then through the hole. Then on the other side, you got another flat washer. And then you have a locking nut. So we're going to put that on here. We're going to tighten this down. We're going to need to use our 10mm socket with ratchet, and then also our 10mm wrench here, so we can get it. Actually, I'm going to do it from this side. So you hold the one side, and then tighten it on the other side. There we go. Alright, step 16, we're going to install the heat shield assembly onto the factory air filter housing mounting grommets, which we got the 3 here. So if you're missing one, it might be stuck on the old air filter. And you're going to line up these studs into those 3 holes. Now you may have to do a little adjusting on this one to get it set right, so you might want to keep it loose until you get this installed. So push this down like that, and there you go. Step 17, we're going to install the provided coupler. It's the 084031 onto the throttle body and secure it with the provided hose clamp. So it's going to go right here. So we're just going to push that on here, like so. We're going to get our hose clamp, and we're going to tighten that down with a flat tip screwdriver. Step 18, we're going to install the provided hump coupler, and that's the 084079 onto the filter adapter here and secure it with the provided hose clamp. So make sure you got the bigger end going towards that, and then put your hose clamp on first. Slide that on. Then we're going to tighten it with a flat tip screwdriver again. Make sure you got to use the bigger hose clamp here. Make sure you got this lined up good. All right. So step 19, we're going to assemble the evap fittings and the hose as shown. So you just push these in here. Get it all the way on there on both sides. All right. So step 20, we're going to install our assembled evap hose assembly onto the K&N intake tube right here. So you just thread it in here, screw it in. This is actually a 14mm fitting here. All right. Step 21, we're going to install the 90-degree crankcase vent fitting onto the K&N intake tube as shown here. So you're just going to screw it in. Make sure you don't cross thread it. And this, you're going to screw it in hand tight, and then 2 turns with a wrench. And that's going to be 18mm. At least that fits pretty good. And when we're done with this, we want it to be pointed up if we have it flipped over like this. So just like that. Step 22, we're going to remove the mass airflow sensor from the factory filter housing. To do that, we're going to use our T20 Torx and our ratchet. We're going to just take these two screws out right here. careful with your sensor here. Step 23, we're going to install our mass air assembly into the K&N intake tube as shown. We're going to use the supplied 3mm bolts. Make sure that the plug is down with the elbow facing this way. Be careful when you slide that in. Tighten these down. Step 24, we're going to install the K&N intake tube assembly onto the coupler at the filter adapter and at the throttle body here. So we'll make sure that we have our hose clamps on there before we do this. And we're going to slide it into the air filter assembly first, then kind of just rotate it up into the throttle body. Once we got it in position here, we'll move our clamps into the right position. We'll tighten them down with our flat blade screwdriver. And then this side. Make sure they're nice and snug too. No air leaks or this thing moving at all. It's pretty solid. There we go. Step 25, we're going to connect the K&N EVAP quick disconnect fitting into the factory fitting here. We're just going to plug it in. Make sure it's secured in there. Step 26, we're going to install the provided crankcase vent hose onto the factory vent hose here and the K&N fitting here. Let me just press this on. Step 27, we're going to reconnect our mass airflow electrical sensor connection. Just push it on and make sure that you press the red locking tab behind it all the way down to lock it on. All right, step 28, we're going to install the K&N air filter with the supplied hose clamp. Slide it onto here and tighten it down with our flat tip screwdriver. All right, step 29, we're going to reinstall our engine's decorative cover here. Removing the oil fill cap. Slide it back on, put the oil fill cap back on. There we go. And then we're going to install our T30 bolt here on the side. I'm going to snug that up with our ratchet. All right. Step 30, we're going to reconnect our battery's negative terminal here back in the trunk. You might get a little spark, and you also might get your car alarm to go off here. We'll see. We use our 10mm socket with ratchet to tighten this down. So we got that nice and snug. We'll put our little panel right here back on. And that's it.
That's going to wrap it up here for our review and install of the K&N Series 69 Typhoon Cold Air Intake, fitting 2016 and newer V6 Camaros. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, for all things Camaro, be sure to keep it right here at AmericanMuscle.com.